Amazing kids unexpectedly rescued a cowboy from a snowstorm, revealing their new father. Lily's breath came in frantic bursts as she gripped the sled, eyes glinting with excitement against the stark white backdrop of their snow-laden Montana playground. Today was supposed to be an adventure, an escape into a world where imagination reigned. But as the storm clouds darkened, there was a tightening in her chest, a premonition that this day might hold more than mere fun. The wind howled, its intense bite a reminder of her quiet fears, driving her to forget all hesitation and push down the hill, her friends cheering behind her. Each descent sent shivers of exhilaration racing through her, but with every ride, the sense of foreboding grew. What if they were too far from home when the snow buried them? What if they weren't ready for what might come? Sledding had always felt like freedom, but now there was danger shadowing their laughter, whispering doubts into her ears. It gnawed at her, and she found herself questioning if they should head back. Yet she pushed the thoughts aside, invigorated by the joy radiating from her companions. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When the winds shifted, the chill sank deeper, now piercing through her clothes and biting at her skin. Is this how it ends, she thought, dread pooling in her gut. They were treacherously far from home, and it felt as if the storm had changed, twisting from jovial snowflakes to a malevolent force. Then, amidst the swirling white that swallowed her friend's laughter, a flicker of motion caught her eye. A figure stumbled through the blizzard, Hank, their reclusive neighbor. His face, veiled with snow and hidden from sight, evoked emotions Lily couldn't quite name. The resolute spirit of the cowboy was raw and haunting, a looming specter in their quaint town, and dread settled in her chest as they approached him with cautious curiosity. "Mr. Hank, are you all right?" they called out, but the wind stole their words. Just then, a sudden realization ignited like lightning in Lily's mind. Was this the man who could barely speak about his past, the shadows she had only heard whispered in her family? All at once, fear and resolve coiled tightly within her. Was this not just any cowboy stranded by a storm, but their father, lost to grief and years of separation? The sorrow surrounding Hank blurred into a palpable force, binding their stories in a way they never anticipated. Could her youthful courage be enough to confront what lay beneath that lonely exterior, the darkness that had silenced their family? As she rallied her friends, desperation merged with determination. They needed to guide him back, not just through the storm, but through his sorrow. But was she brave enough to unearth the emotional wreckage in Hank's heart? Could she lead them back to a home that now felt like a distant memory? The storm swirled violently, just as the emotions within Hank tumbled wildly. Each gust of wind seemed to mirror his internal battle. Would he rise from the ashes of his past, or remain entrenched in painful solitude? As they stood on the precipice of discovery, their futures hung in the balance, shrouded in snow and fraught with uncertainty. As the storm battered the landscape, Lily felt an unexpected urgency ignite within her. The reality of their situation crashed over her. This was no ordinary day. Instead of a carefree snowy adventure, it had transformed into a test of courage for both her and Hank. She could see him struggle against the relentless wind, the confusion etched into his features. A man lost not just in the snow, but in a personal tempest. "Come on, we have to help him," she shouted, voice barely cutting through the howling winds that roared against her small frame. The words felt bold yet terrifying. Was she stepping into territory far beyond childish games, into a realm where emotional survival hinged on the choices they made? Her friends exchanged wide-eyed glances, uncertainty mirrored in their expressions. They were children playing at heroism, but now faced with the weight of responsibility. This was no longer a game. "You go, Lily, we'll keep a lookout," one friend shouted back, though doubt trembled in their voice, revealing the collective fear that gripped them all. With her heart pounding, Lily took a deep breath and plunged into the storm. Each step brought a fierce gust that whipped through her, and she could feel the chill creeping deeper, but it paled in comparison to the ache of the unfamiliar bond tugging at her conscience. Hank was more than simply their neighbor. He was a vital thread intertwined with their family's past. "Mr. Hank," she called again, her voice steadier this time. "We're here to help you." The words felt heavier, but somehow necessary, anchoring her resolve. She could sense a connection growing as she neared him, a call to the depths of his sorrow she didn't fully understand, yet felt compelled to explore. When she reached him, the storm seemed to relent momentarily, as if acknowledging their shared struggle. Hank looked at her, eyes flickering with disbelief. "Why are you here, girl? It's too dangerous." His voice cracked under the weight of the wind, but there was an edge of recognition, a spark of vulnerability that she grasped onto fiercely. "I'm not leaving you," she replied, her voice firm. "We can go back together." As they stood against the swirling white, the reality of their connection ignited a sense of hope within her. She was no longer just a child playing in the snow. She was stepping into the role of a leader, a guide for the man who had slipped through the cracks of their lives. But could her adolescence transform the course of their fractured relationship? Yet the larger question loomed. Was she ready to face the emotional undercurrents that flowed beneath Hank's stoic exterior? What terrified him so deeply that he kept his family at bay? With a glance to her friends, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. They looked on, eyes wide, offering silent encouragement from their distance. In that moment, Lily realized she needed to carve a path not only through the storm, but into the heart of the man before her, a journey that could breach years of silence and reinstate a sense of belonging. As Hank took a hesitant step forward, she sensed the small crack in his armor. Perhaps there was a willingness to confront the past buried beneath layers of grief. But as the wind howled back to life, whipping snow around them like an unrelenting beast, Lily's own heart raced. Would she have the strength to confront whatever lay hidden in Hank's heart, or would they both succumb to the cold, bitter shadows? The storm intensified, and the moment shifted. The time had come to face the demons that had kept them apart for too long. And as she peered into Hank's eyes, seeking a flicker of understanding, a sudden darkness enveloped them momentarily, far more menacing than the snowstorm, and it sent a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Would she break through, or be swallowed by the swirling chaos? Lily's breath hung visibly in the air, mixing with the swirling snowflakes as she summoned every ounce of bravery she had. Hank, still wrapped in his cocoon of silence, presented a puzzle she yearned to solve. The moment felt pivotal, as if they both teetered on the edge of a precipice that held the weight of their unspoken histories. "Mr. Hank," she pressed, taking another step closer. The storm roared around them, but within her grew a resolute warmth. "You don't have to be alone anymore." It was a line that cut deeper than she intended. She sensed his reaction, a tiny flinch as if she had unearthed a buried truth. Was she right? The desire for emotional connection swirled between them, charged and electrified, matching the tumultuous environment that enveloped them. "What do you know about being alone?" Hank shot back, his tone harsh, cloaked in defensiveness. Yet beneath that hardness she caught something softer, a flicker of ancient grief aching for acknowledgement. In that instant, Lily recognized a critical turning point. She was not merely an inquisitive child. She stood before him as an ally in the face of his personal storm. Her own past, marred by loss and abandonment, mirrored his struggles. More than she had ever realized. The idea that courage was more than just physical presence started to settle in her mind. "I know enough," she began, her voice trembling but unwavering, "to understand that facing it alone is the hardest part." The wind seemed to still for a moment. Her words hung perilously between them, releasing a quiet tension. Hank's expression shifted, and she could see the barriers he had built over the years faltering, like ice serenely cracking under pressure. "Why do you care? I'm just a burden," he replied, the fight in him dimming, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability that trapped them both in an uncomfortable honesty. Lily inhaled sharply, searching not for the perfect words, but for a truth she felt fiercely inside. "Because you matter, and you haven't shown us who you are. It's okay to let things out. Maybe that's how we find our way back, together." The flicker of his internal struggle ignited something within her as she realized the power of her newfound identity, not just as a child, but as a messenger of acceptance and change. The winds still howled, but they felt less oppressive now, as though they had both begun to penetrate the layers of emotional insulation they each wore. But fear echoed profoundly in Hank's eyes. "You don't know what I've done." His voice, now so much quieter, quaked as though holding back a flood. Facing this new insight, Lily felt the potent understanding that personal journeys were riddled with pain, shame, and darkness. But ornate in that darkness were the flickers of potential personal rebirth. She sought to guide him through this uncharted territory, not just as the kid who had ventured against the storm, but as an emerging leader grappling to light the way for others. "Maybe what you've done can lead to understanding," she suggested gently. "What if you shared it with me? Maybe we can figure it out together." The offer hung in the air, vulnerable yet bold. But as Hank looked at her, torn between fear and an almost desperate will to break free from his past, the storm roared back to life. A gust of wind flung a wall of snow, nearly knocking them off their feet. The external chaos underlined the internal tempest. They were caught, their emotional confrontation abruptly interrupted, but the felt tether between them remained. Would she have the courage to persist amidst the uncertainty, to carry this weight? "Mr. Hank," she called out, her heart racing anew, "please let me in. You deserve to be free." As he hesitated, entranced yet fearful of what he might reveal, the darkness beneath his facade loomed larger than ever. Could she reach through and help him escape the shadows of his past? The next blow from the storm veiled them in snow once more, casting a shroud over their moment. In that blinding whiteness, something deep shifted inside her, igniting an urgency she couldn't ignore. The true test was set before them. Both, the stakes steeped in the fragility of trust. With a flicker of determination, she pressed on. Was he ready to confront his fears? And would she have enough strength to lead him into the light? Lily stood resolute, the biting wind now reduced to a whisper, silenced by her determination. The flurry of snow swirling around them created an ethereal barrier, momentarily shielding them from the chaos driven by Hank's inner turmoil. In this brief tranquility, she peered deep into his eyes, searching for the remnants of the man he could still become. "Please," she repeated, her voice more insistent, "I want to understand you. I want to help." This urgency stirred something within her, a deep-rooted instinct to protect and guide, a sensation foreign but potent. Hank took a step back, the weight of his past pressing heavily against him. "You shouldn't have to," he muttered, defensiveness clawing at the walls he had built. But that flicker of vulnerability she had glimpsed earlier still glimmered, urging her not to back down. "No," she countered, her heart pulsating with the intensity of her words. "I choose to care. I never asked for this storm, but I'm here." As she spoke, the wind shifted again, enveloping them in a more profound silence, allowing the intimacy of their confrontation to settle. Yet inside, doubts consumed her. Was she truly equipped to break through his barriers? Could she be the one to lead him forward instead of retreating into her own fears? A part of her feared failure, of being unable to embrace the weight of Hank's shadows with her own growing anxieties. But the only way forward was to confront these fears head-on. "Tell me what's holding you back, Mr. Hank," she implored, shifting from reassurance to command. In this moment, Lily recognized her own evolutionary arc as more than a bystander. She had ventured far beyond just curiosity. She was stepping into a leadership role, assuming the responsibility of guiding someone else through their darkness. His voice broke, conflicting emotions raging behind his steely exterior. "You wouldn't understand. It's the kinds of things they change people. They ruin you." Her empathy ignited again, her experiences echoing his words. "But we're not our pasts. They don't define us," she urged softly. "I know. I've been lost too." A flicker of something dangerous, hope, crossed Hank's face. The acknowledgement didn't bloom into promise, but it sparked a twist in her own path. She was not here to analyze or judge, but rather to fortify resilience, to illuminate the path through shared human experiences. "Look," she continued, "let's face this storm together. We can figure out how to move forward. Just take that first step." He shook his head, eyes glistening with storm-driven emotion. "And what if I hurt you in the process?" The question hung heavy, and for a moment uncertainty folded over her like the icy gales scraping her skin. Deep within, she understood the stakes. They were as tall as the snowdrifts surrounding. "But what if facing it leads to healing?" she pressed. "What if the hardest truth is the gateway to freedom? What if it brings you peace?" The raw honesty of her plea hung in the air like an unspoken agreement. In juxtaposing their vulnerability, they opened a dialogue of possibilities. Could her bravery be enough to extend to him? Taking a breath, Hank squeezed his eyes shut, wrestling with the myriad emotions coursing through him. The moment felt precarious, a delicate scale swaying between fear and the potential for liberation. "Fine," he finally rasped, determination threading his tone like a rope tethering him to his own vulnerability. "But you have to promise me you won't look away." "Never," she replied, her voice fierce with conviction. "We face this together." With each passing second, the air thickened with sincerity, a moment of profound connection forged against the backdrop of the storm. A bond deepened by promises of honesty and the quest for mutual strength. But just then, the winds shifted once more, an ominous swirl beckoning another intensity, a harbinger of deeper revelations. In that frozen silence, Lily realized that Hank's secrets weren't just a burden to him. They were also an invitation for her to explore parts of herself she had long buried. As a strange brightness flickered within the enveloping chaos, she pondered the uncharted territories of hurt they might navigate. The strength to confront their personal storms flowed through her veins, but was she truly ready to confront the vulnerabilities that lay ahead? Behind that fragile promise lingered the heavy truths that they both had yet to unearth. Would the desire for freedom catalyze their paths to clarity, or entangle them deeper in shadows yet unseen? The winds howled around them, swirls of snow blurring their surroundings, a testament to the tumult of their separate journeys converging in this charged moment. With his secrets looming larger than ever, and her own strength flickering like a flame, destiny urged them both toward what lay hidden in the depths, a revelation waiting just beyond the storm's edge. Lily stood rooted in the whirling snow, the biting cold fading into the periphery of her consciousness as the weight of Hank's struggles enveloped her. Each flake seemed to dance with unspoken truths, swirling with possibilities. She had offered her steadfastness, but deep inside, an unsettling knot twisted tighter. Would her willingness to wade deeper into his scars merit any real progress? Or would they drown in each other's despair? As if sensing her retreat into doubt, Hank breathed out a shaky sigh, letting the remnants of his facade crumble a little more. "You think you can handle the truth?" he countered, his voice barely rising above the howling wind. "Try me," she replied, the challenge igniting a flicker of strength within her. This was no longer an act of mere concern. It demanded a fierce resilience rooted in her own past battles. Would this invitation into the depths of his pain mirror the labyrinth of emotions she herself had faced? Hank's tension fluctuated like the wind across the snow-covered ground. "You have no idea what it is to lose everything," he said, taking a definitive step backward, attempting to shield himself from exposure. It was a desperate maneuver, one that spoke volumes of his struggles. Lily recognized that shrinking away from vulnerability had been her inclination too, yet here she was determined to break that cycle. "Then tell me," she urged, softening her approach. "Help me understand the pieces of your life that haunt you. Those things can't control you forever unless you let them." Each word pulled them closer to a decision, and in that moment the swirling snow danced with a new intensity. Hank looked up, the torment in his eyes mirroring the forgotten scars on his soul. With her heart beating in tandem with the rhythm of the storm, she felt as if they were both listed on a precipice. The stakes had shifted. This wasn't merely about him. She stood at her own crossroads, too. The hesitation lingered, stretching seconds into what felt like an eternity. "What do you think I'm afraid of?" he asked, a hint of bitterness lacing his words. "I was a different man once. I don't understand what's left of me. It's all lost." Undeterred, Lily took a small step toward him, as if bridging the gap between their disillusioned selves. "But maybe it's not lost. Maybe it's still buried, waiting for you to reclaim it. In order to heal, you have to unearth it first." That shared yearning for healing forged a pulse of clarity between them. She saw him wrestle with the jagged edges of his past, and an unexpected warmth resonated in her chest. In illuminating the raw truth, she found her strength. Would he rise to meet hers? She approached closer still, ignoring the bitter wind that whipped around them. "What if we can learn from our scars rather than be swallowed by them?" The sincerity of her question echoed into the stillness, almost daring him to confront it. There it was, the moment of awakening. Hank seemed to weigh her words against the tempest that roared in his mind. It was a risk, opening up, but the glimmer of hope ignited a flicker of recognition in his gaze. "Maybe," he whispered, hesitating on the verge of something significant. "But it's not easy." The threads of their connection tightened around the promise of honesty. "I'm not asking you for an easy path," she replied. "I'm here for all of it, the heavy and the light." He studied her, vulnerability overtaking defensiveness for the first time. "And what if I fail? What if it's too much?" "What if that's where we discover who we truly are?" she shot back, her voice unwavering, leaving no space for retreat. With the tension escalating, the winds howled a frenetic hymn, urging them past fear and uncertainty. Were they truly ready to face the grief and the reckoning? Together? Undoubtedly, both of them stood at the convergence of revelations. Would it lead to healing, or would more wounds surface, irrevocably changing them both? As their gazes locked, the storm whispering possibilities around them, Lily realized they were not just facing Hank's past. They were somehow intertwining their destinies, forging a bond that could transform her uncertainties into newfound determination. She sensed an unspoken decision looming. Perhaps by plunging into darkness together, they might just unearth the light. But just then, a chill washed over them both, an echo of unanswered questions lurking in the corners of their minds, demanding to be addressed. Closing her eyes against the cold, Lily whispered, "What do we truly fear losing, and can we face whatever it is together?" The moment teetered on resolution, and as Hank responded with a raw honesty that had been dormant for far too long, the winds surged around them, resolute and urgent, daring them to encounter a truth that could unravel or unite them entirely. The frigid air stung Lily's cheeks as she opened her eyes, watching Hank wrestle with the emotions swirling in his gaze. The snow, now a metaphorical canvas, began to feel less like a barrier and more like a transformation, painting their future with shades of uncertainty and potential. They stood on the edge of something profound, shackled together by shared fears and the undeniable urge for connection. "What do we fear losing?" Hank finally echoed, and in his voice was a crack, an entry point to his past demons. She sensed the layers hesitating in their descent, just waiting to be peeled back. It was unnerving, but she felt a strange rush of determination. As he battled with his thoughts, her mind drifted to her own heart, a heart that had weathered storms and learned to soar despite the gray skies. "Maybe it's the person we think we have to be," she suggested, the words tumbling out before she could analyze them. "You fear losing the illusion of strength, the man who succeeded at everything. But what if vulnerability is a different kind of strength? I've learned that from my own past." Hank blanked, surprise flickering across his face. The facade of toughness had always been his shield, but beneath it lay a haunting void. What if it was all about redefining their narratives, rewriting their stories to include the scars that gave them depth instead of hiding them like shameful secrets? "Tell me about that past of yours," Hank prompted, his voice softer now. "You've clearly faced your demons. How did you get through?" Lily hesitated, her own wounds surfacing like ghosts in the cold. She had concealed those experiences, packing them away deeply for fear that even memories would unravel her. "I lost my mother when I was young," she confessed, gauging his reaction. "I didn't know how to exist after that. I thought moving on meant forgetting, until I realized that the scars made me who I am now." Hank listened intently, and she could feel him inching closer, closer to acceptance, to honesty. "That fear," he said, more to himself than to her, "it consumed me. Believing I had to be infallible led me to become withdrawn. I didn't want anyone to see the truth, to witness the weaknesses." Lily stepped forward, courage flaring within her. "But you're not weak. Acknowledging your pain isn't a failing. It's an act of bravery. We've both hidden behind masks. It's time to take them off." His brow furrowed, yet there was a glimmer of hope kindling in his eyes. What if that truth brings others pain? What if it drives them away? "Then we find new pathways," Lily replied resolutely. "Honesty sometimes leads to departure, but it can also illuminate the way to unexpected connections. You might discover something better on the other side." A breath hung in the air between them, thick with the promise of revelation. The affection coiled around them like the storm, fierce yet nurturing, hinting at territories both of them had withheld. "What if we fail?" Hank questioned again, the weight of his experiences pressing against his chest. Lily felt her own heart pound, exhilaration coursing through her veins. Failure isn't the end. It's a lesson, a stepping stone. Isn't that worth more than hiding in despair? And in that pivotal moment, something shifted. The storm seemed less daunting, as if it could guide rather than swallow them whole. Hank's shoulders relaxed. The man cloaked in shame was slowly re-emerging, willing to confront the shadows. "I don't want to lose you, Lily," murmured. "Or maybe," she challenged gently, "you found a legitimate chance to change your story while grounding me in mine. Let's shift from fear to discovery." As they stood on the brink, the wind swirled anew, echoing her mantra, "Every ending paints a new beginning." But then a sudden gust swept through, revealing the full intensity of the storm outside. It was as if nature itself symbolized their unraveling truths, pushing them toward urgency. Just as the storm took hold, a distant sound sliced through the wind, voices, ambiguous and faint, drawing nearer. "What is that?" Lily asked, their moment of clarity interrupted by this strange intrusion. As the wind shifted, she felt a surge of adrenaline. What awaited them in the howling chaos? Would they rise together to face whatever was coming, or would they falter, lost once more in the shadows of the past? Hannah's heart raced, the exhilarating uncertainty of the moment electrifying her senses. There was so much at stake. Lily's heart hammered in rhythm with the unwelcome anxiety flooding back into the moment. The howling wind now seemed to steal her breath, but it also ignited something inside her, an unsettling mix of fear and anticipation. She scanned the horizon, searching for the source of the distant voices that intruded upon their fragile connection. "What if it's help?" Hank's whisper broke through her thoughts, carrying both dread and hope. She turned to him, noticing the resolve blooming in his eyes. It was a quality she longed to manifest in herself, echoing the bravery she had nudged him toward earlier. Maybe, she thought, this situation could act as a crucible for both of them. They exchanged glances, silently agreeing to venture forward together. It wasn't just about uncovering truth, it also had the potential to shape them into who they were meant to become. As they trudged through the swirling snow, Lily's mind raced with possibilities. The storm, though fierce, could be the catalyst for the change they desperately needed. Each step into the unknown felt heavy yet electrifying. The air tasted like anticipation. Who were those voices? Were they friendly? As apprehension washed over her, she resolved to remain rooted in the moment, deliberate in her actions. She didn't want to retreat into her past patterns of fear and avoidance. She sought to confront whatever emerged with the courage she had just cultivated. But with each passing second, the voices grew clearer, laced with urgency. She instinctively placed her hand on Hank's arm, a gesture of alliance. What if we can be their strength, too? It wasn't just about seeking rescue or connection, it was about sharing their newfound resolve. He nodded, anticipation flickering in his gaze, and they pressed forward until silhouettes emerged through the frost-laden haze. Children, several of them, bundled in bright jackets, cheeks rosy from the cold, laughter spilling from their lips, seemingly unaware of the fierce storm. Lily's pulse quickened. What were kids doing braving this blizzard? The sight of their youthful energy ignited an unexpected spark inside her. These were not mere innocents. Visions of possibility surrounded them. They had their own stories, their own fears, their own capacities to face the storms of life. "Help us," one of the children shouted, his eyes wide with determination, as they approached Hank and Lily. "We found someone stuck in a snowdrift. He might be hurt." The whirlwind of challenge and urgency shifted, and in that moment, the vulnerability she'd shared with Hank felt like armor against the cold impotence of fear. She could feel the change brewing within her, an undeniable urge to act, to be brave not just for herself, but for others. "What if we go together?" Hank voiced, pitching his idea to Lily as they assessed the situation. "If we align our strengths, we could all get through this, together, as a team." A rush of clarity surged through Lily. "Yes," she affirmed, her voice steady. "We need to help him. It may teach us something about ourselves in the process." Rallying the kids around them, they formed a plan, a collaborative effort that took shape in the middle of chaos. As they moved swiftly, navigating the minimalist landscape that felt both hostile and transformative, emotion surged within her. It was a palpable reminder of her own internal struggles, ghostly echoes of fear twining with newfound determination. With each step, Lily felt as if she were not only forging ahead in that storm, but breaking past limitations she had placed on herself. She had powered through loss and had the right to reclaim her narrative. Perhaps vulnerability was a vessel for newfound strength, a clarity that transcended her past. As they reached the snowdrift, a figure began to materialize, half buried beneath the snow. Hank's eyes widened, and together they peered closer, heartbeats in sync with a single thought. There was no turning back now. They were at the precipice of an experience that could redefine all they knew about bravery, resilience, and connection. Suddenly, a chilling realization swept over Lily. This wasn't just about helping someone obscure in the storm. It felt deeply personal, a test of their growth, challenging both her and Hank to confront their fears right there in the snowy expanse. "What if he knows us?" Hank's voice trembled with a different kind of urgency. Each heartbeat felt amplified against the stillness of the storm as they leaned closer to uncover the truth. Would this man possess a connection to their journeys, urging them to confront their pasts directly? There lay a world of possibilities in that moment, hanging delicately in the air, waiting to spill over. Would they undermine their vulnerability or find strength anew amidst the challenges that defined their very existence? As they took a collective breath, the weight of the unknown pressed heavily upon them, intertwining their fates in ways they never expected. The snow swirled around them, a chaotic dance that mirrored Lily's internal turmoil. She felt the tension straining at her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. This was more than a rescue. It was a confrontation with the shadows of her past, with all the uncertainties looming behind her. The figure struggling beneath the snow could potentially unravel the fragile hope she had begun to weave for herself. As they crouched low, the muffled cries intensified, igniting a visceral urgency in Lily. What had she been afraid of? This blizzard? The past? It was time to shake off the chains of doubt. She watched as Hank, still by her side, his worry palpable but mixed with determination, pulled back the snow with urgency. The children mirrored his actions, their tiny hands revealing strong foundations of solidarity she had instinctively fostered within them. What if he does know us? The question lingered in the cold air, a statement as much as it was a fear. The thought clawed at her. This stranger could represent anything from a past they both wished to forget to an unanticipated catalyst for growth. In the blustering wind, the prospect felt simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Breath shallow, Lily leaned closer, her heart racing at the prospect. She recalled her father's tales of resilience, of courageous actions taken in the midst of chaos. Could this be a test of her own mettle, just as he had always encouraged? Each breath becoming a countdown, she began to dig, joining Hank's effort alongside the other children who seemed to take their cues from her. There was strength in numbers, a renewed sense of purpose enveloping them all as the stranger began to take shape. As they cleared the final remnants of snow, the man's face sprang into focus. Lily froze, a chill running deeper than the biting cold. She recognized him, a figure from another life, a piece of an unfinished puzzle, and she could see the shadow of something she thought she had long buried. The man, they had known him once, in the old world of shared laughter and memories marred by loss. Her mind raced, searching through years of fragmented recollections, emotions surfacing like the ice coalescing beneath her feet. The stranger, now revealed, met her gaze with an intensity that sent her spiraling back. This was Jake, their former mentor, a man who had quietly slipped from their lives in the same way she had vanished from her own aspirations. Uncertainty mixed with anger rose within Lily, a blend that threatened to dismantle everything she had painstakingly built. "What happened to you?" she questioned, the words escaping before she could catch them. Her voice was a whisper against the wind, but it carried the weight of years unuttered. A slow, painful recognition passed through Jake's eyes, and he lifted a shaky hand. "I thought I lost what mattered. I wanted to be the one teaching you to be brave, but I fell into my own darkness." Hank shifted beside her, an unspoken question played across his features. The children, oblivious to the emotional tempest, looked to Lily, drawing strength from her presence. In this moment, her instinct to lead surged forth, drowning out the echoes of her past and settling like firm ground beneath her feet. "Then let's get you out of here," she said, a surprising conviction filling her voice. "We all need to face our storms and help each other through." This was an opportunity not just for Jake, but for Lily, an act of defiance against the fears that had shadowed her for too long. Her determination crackled in the cold air, and the children rallied around her, echoing her newfound strength as they prepared to lift him. But in the back of her mind, a deeper tension churned. What if helping him meant reopening wounds that could fester? What if it could reveal absolute truths she wasn't ready to face? As Jake gripped their hands and they pulled him to his feet, Lily felt the weight of those questions gnawing at her resolve. The storm howled, an unpredictable reminder of nature's wildness, mirroring the chaos of emotion stirring within. Would this rescue transform them all, not just from physical peril, but from the shackles of their intertwined pasts? The moment lingered, heavy with potential, each heartbeat pulsing with the fear of new revelations yet to come. Just as they were about to step back into the swirling white, she caught a flicker of recognition in Jake's eyes, forcing her to confront the implications of what they were about to embark on. This journey stretched beyond the snowdrift. They stood on the threshold of both revelation and trial. "Lily," Jake breathed, the faintest hint of a question in his tone, as if sensing the tidal wave of truth behind her current. A wall of uncertainty formed in her chest. She had crossed the distance from fear to bravery, but what lay on the other side of this redemption? With one last steadying breath, they stepped forward into the vast unknown, teetering on the brink of discovery. Whatever lay ahead had the power to break or mend, all tied within the fragile threads of confession and courage. The wind howled around them as they trudged back toward the camp. Each step felt monumental, forging connections between the frail remains of her past and the solidarity of the present. Lily's heart raced, not just from the cold, but from anticipation cloaked in dread. The rescue of Jake had awakened a part of herself she thought was buried, a part that had yearned for acceptance, growth, and the courage to confront the specters of her former life. Jake stumbled alongside them, relying heavily on her support and the children's small but determined hands. They were threading into a new pattern of resilience, and for the first time, Lily felt she was not merely leading but learning alongside them. However, the confusion that had nestled in her chest remained. Each of Jake's labored breaths fueled an unease bubbling to the surface. "Lily," he rasped, his voice almost a whisper above the wind. "You've changed. How did you find your strength?" His question lingered in the air, demanding a response. It echoed in her mind, weaving through memories of her father's stories, the lessons of hardship, and ultimately her own difficult path to self-discovery. Did she truly embody the fortitude she had once only envisioned? "I've learned that survival isn't just about staying alive," Lily found herself saying, an unplanned honesty spilling forth. "It's about confronting what scares you the most and choosing to fight back, not just for yourself, but for those who stand with you." Jake nodded, his gaze dropping, as if the weight of her words cast an undeniable shadow over him. They walked in silence, but each step seemed to solidify her resolve. She felt like a bridge between who she had been and who she could become, a living testament that strength can arise out of vulnerability. As they approached the camp, a flicker of firelight danced against her skin, offering a promise of warmth and safety. Yet the prospect of intimacy and conversation left her fraught with trepidation. Jake would soon have the chance to address the life he had led apart from them, one that had taken him far into his own darkness. They settled around the fire, children huddling close, watching, witnessing this reunion between mentor and student, past and present. Lily couldn't escape the sensation that their shared history loomed ominously, ready to surface.
In the flickering shadows, in the crackling flames, she saw fragments of Jake she had idolized, the laughter, the adventure-laden tales, the wisdom shared like gifts. But now there was only a hollow echo of the man she had once admired. "What happened to you, Jake?" she pressed, her voice steady despite the quaking in her stomach. The children leaned in, enraptured and oblivious to the underlying tension of remembrance. She was grateful for their innocence as she wrestled with the weight of familiarity that labeled every shared moment as both precious and painful. He hesitated, casting his eyes toward the fire before meeting hers. "I lost my way, Lily. The world shattered in ways I didn't expect, and I didn't know how to rebuild. I isolated myself, thinking I was protecting you from my failures, but now I see I was only running away." An anger surged within her, frustration woven with understanding. "But we needed you, Jake. We needed your guidance, your strength. You taught us about facing life's trials. How could you abandon that?" She felt exposed, like every past hurt was laid bare before him. The surge of emotion jolted her awareness. Was she conflicted because she was confronting feelings she had not dealt with? Or was her anger justified in wanting more from someone she once revered? The fire crackled between them, illuminating shaken faces, every flicker punctuating the profound silence that spilled over the camp. With heavy breaths, she wrestled with her thoughts, unwilling to allow old grievances to dictate her reaction. This was not simply about Jake's forsaking. It was about her choosing to emerge stronger, to redefine the narrative. "Maybe we can help each other rebuild," she finally suggested, her tone lighter yet grounded in purpose. This storm revealed something profound. Perhaps we all need to face our darkness together, not apart, to forge a path ahead. Just as hope started to blossom, Jake's expression shifted, an unreadable turmoil lurking beneath the surface. "But what if the darkness is too heavy to bear together?" Jake questioned, skepticism creeping back into his voice. Lily's heart raced. Could they truly confront their struggles as a united front? The challenge loomed ahead, a test of resolve she didn't anticipate. With the flickering shadows of the fire as a backdrop to their confrontation, she could feel the intensity growing. The time had come to face the truths that neither of them had been willing to confront. What if nurturing the past meant awakening deeper wounds? Or perhaps it signified the starting point to not only mend their fractured histories, but to build something stronger. "Let's find out," she said, her voice steady, filled with an unlikely courage rooted in vulnerability. The fire blazed behind them, illuminating the path forward, a path fraught with uncertainty, but also enticing potential. As anticipation tightened around them, she wondered if they were truly ready to face the depths of their shared past, or if the winds of change would sweep them apart yet. Again, the fire crackled steadily, casting its warm glow across the faces of the gathered friends and children.
Each numbing chill from the storm was countered by the heat emanating from the flames, a poignant reminder that warmth could come from the most unexpected places. Lily looked around, taking in the children's wide-eyed expressions as they watched Jake, anonymity and familiarity in their youthful curiosity. She recognized the depth of this moment as one that could reshape not just her journey, but that of everyone gathered. "Jake," she prompted again, finding her voice with determination, "what if we face the fallout together? You don't have to carry everything on your own. We won't let you." Those words reverberated with the weight of minutes turned into years. They demanded acknowledgement and validation. Jake's shoulders seemed to sag under the burden of years lost, but also lifted slightly under the warmth of camaraderie. But how do we confront a past that feels too heavy to face? He looked around as if each child represented an innocent beacon of hope, illuminating paths he had once obscured. "That's where we draw strength from one another," Lily affirmed, her heart thrumming with the urgency of her commitment. "Facing the storm is just as much about the people beside you as it is about accepting your own fears." In that moment, she realized that this was her chance to affirm not just her transformation, but the possibility of healing for them all. She took a deep breath, the anticipation palpable in the air. "Jake, vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's part of our humanity. Hiding from it only reinforces the chains of our past." Lily felt emboldened by her own words, fierce tension coiling around the fire's flickering glow. Each statement she uttered epitomized her own struggle, facing loss, vulnerability, and ultimately the resolve to create her own path. As Jake met her gaze, she saw something shifting within him. Perhaps the lid on his own trauma was beginning to crack under her fierce encouragement. The questions she had proffered didn't simply dwell on his failures. They beckoned toward freedom, a release from the self-imposed isolation he had endured for far too long. Slowly, a somber realization washed over Jake's countenance. "Every moment spent away from you all was a decision that echoed in ways I never imagined. I thought I was protecting you by retreating, but perhaps I was just protecting myself from confronting my own choices." "Perhaps," Lily said softly, "but what matters now is where we go from here." As if in response, Hank, who had been silently weighing the unfolding dialogue, spoke up. "The key is to take each step together, learn to navigate through our histories as allies rather than foes." Lily turned to Hank, grateful for his presence. In that moment, he illustrated the defining transition from isolation to belonging, a shift from confronting the storm alone to forging an alliance. What started as a series of isolated choices burdened by sorrow, now entwined
into a collective journey. She reached out, placing her hand on Hank's shoulder as a gesture of solidarity. "Together, we rewrite our stories. This doesn't have to be where it ends for any of us." Jake nodded slowly in agreement, a hint of hesitance still flickering beneath his eyes. "But what if my past shadows this new beginning?" "Then we face it all, together," Lily echoed, energizing her conviction. "You once told me that every storm does pass. It's true, but what matters is what we learn along the way." The warmth of the fire drew them closer, and to Lily it felt like a circle of connection filling with promises that could no longer be contained. As they began to share their stories, hesitance ebbed like the tides, drawing into the ocean. Lily started by recounting the loss of her mother, the void it created, and how struggling through grief reformatted her understanding of strength and vulnerability. The children clung to her words, mirroring emotions she had ensconced for far too long. With each tale shared, it became clear that the darkness they bore had less power over them as they began to acknowledge it collectively. Jake spoke of his sorrow, his retreat into silence, and how it silently consumed him until he felt more ghost than man.
And together they laughed, cried, and faced awkward remarks exchanged about their pasts, creating an atmosphere that encouraged healing instead of hindrances. Vulnerability intertwined with newfound strength, an authentic meeting ground for growth. "Maybe," Jake said finally, as the embers coiled into the night sky, "this is what I was missing all along. Not just a sense of purpose, but a place to confront my past." With acceptance, they forged ahead, relinquishing fear and stepping into promise. The fire seemed to burn brighter as vulnerability turned into shared resilience, fusing their fates together. The storm continued to rage outside, yet within their circle a new foundation was taking shape, one built on understanding, shared burdens, and the empowering knowledge that they were not alone in their struggles. Through the tempest of life's storms, they found their way back to each other. No longer defined solely by sorrow or fear, Lily saw the shift not just in Jake, but also within herself. A transformation born from embracing her past rather than running from it. With time, Lily's heart glimmered with hope amidst the chaos, grounded in new truths they had created together. The depth of their experience lay not solely in the harshness of the storm, but rather in the courage it took to rise together, reclaiming their identities. As they sat around the fire, laughter echoed into the night, a beautiful symphony of shared victories against the shadows, illuminating a radiant path ahead, one marked by courage, compassion, and the promise that together they could face whatever storms awaited them. The embers flickered out, but the light within them was anything but extinguished. Together they had kindled a new flame, one that would blaze brightly against.
Cold and unknown. Now it all stood in stark contrast to how she had once felt, rooted in despair and uncertainty. They had rebuilt against the storm. They had become the people they were always meant to be. In that moment, if only for a breath, Lily felt utterly prepared to face the world outside the camp, together. As their laughter danced into the starry sky, she knew without a doubt they were ready to welcome whatever came next. Now was the time to embrace it. And now, dear viewers, if you resonate with Lily's journey and the transformative power of connection, then you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support and witness more exclusive emotional stories unfolding. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and your engagement can propel these tales to reach more seekers of inspiration like you. Want to share your thoughts or theories about this extraordinary conclusion? Comment below. Your voice matters. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how extraordinary change and healing can be. Spread the empowerment.